Everybody, today is Monday, May 1st. This is the evening edition of the Timex Sinclair online user group. Um, this is our no special guest night, which means it's updates and who knows what kind of wildcard things we'll talk about. Having said that, I got a whole bunch of things to share with y'all. Okay, so I created a GoFundMe a while back. Some folks suggested that I do that in order to make it possible to, pay for shipping and pay for meetings like this. Uh, and I want to give you a little update because um, John Mobley, who's not here tonight, reached out to me a couple weeks ago and said, we got all these boxes of stuff from Bob Swoger, who was a longtime active member of the community. You know, as a really really active person, he started this newsletter called Circle Live Alive back in 92ish, I think, and it ran for 13 years into the early 2000s. And then people sort of transitioned to Yahoo groups. um, Bob wrote this program called Logical, which was a menuing front end for one of the popular DOS systems for the Timex Sinclair 2068 at the time, the Larkin DOS. And Larkin DOS had a kind of complicated um, command structure. You had to do like print number 4 to get something started, and then after that you could like type in a save or a load command. And to load a program, there's this long string of commands, relatively speaking, and Bob's Logical just sort of made that all simple to give you a little menu on the screen and you just press one letter. And he was also involved in, I think it's called the Glenside Color Computer Club, which has been active for a really long time. They just had their, I think it was 31st last annual meeting. 30 some odd years ago, they decided to have a last annual meeting and it stuck. So anyway,
It's ironic, David, that you
yeah,
bring that up because I was going to ask the question. Who is this guy that Because not to say I have anything against him, selling Timex stuff at a Coco meeting, but
oh,
I was like, who is this guy and where did he get the stuff?
right. So yeah, they have they have an auction as a fundraiser. And as Carl just said, uh there was some Timex stuff. There were some 1000s and 2068s, and these things all came from Bob's collection, is my understanding. Bob passed away in December of last year. So as I say, John reached out to me and said, we got all this stuff and do you want it? And I said, well, if it's something I can archive, if it's paper, if it's tape, absolutely, right? If it's a book, absolutely. He's like, yeah, but all these other bits, maybe some broken stuff. And I'm like, well, sure, send it to me. I will eventually find a home for it. People come looking for parts. They look for, they want something to repair something. It'll find a home, right? It'll sit in my home for a little bit, but it'll find a home. So the first box of largely print material came from John late last week, and um, it had a book called the Sinclair Survivalist Handbook, which was put out by Time Designs magazine. A whole bunch of, oh, it's too bad that Jay's not here. It had Jay Siegel's FDD newsletter, which was a newsletter for the people who owned the Timex Portugal floppy disk system, the one with the 3-inch discs. And Jay has talked to us a couple times during the meeting saying, I used to do this thing and I'm going to dig out my WordStar discs. Well, Jay, we have 8 or 9 issues now on archive. And Jay started this. I didn't know this. Jay started the newsletter in 91, you know, several years after anybody would think of doing such a thing. A bunch of other nifty things. I'll pop it up on the screen in a little bit. So then Friday, uh, John says, I'm sending you 5 boxes of tapes. Yeah, exactly. Do, um, do you think, you know, UPS X-rays tapes, and will that be a problem? I was like, well, I don't think X-rays, you know, are going to harm tapes, but he put stickers on them that says, you know, do not X-ray. And on Saturday, 5 boxes of tapes arrived, and within them were these long Radio Shack cassette tape holders. I think they held like 15 tapes or something, right? And you could get these at Radio Shack back in the 80s, and it still had 1980s price stickers on them. The cardboard sleeve was still on these things. You know, it's like $2.99. I can't tell you how many tapes are in there. I think there are 15 or so trays of these things. Um, so I'm kind of flipping through them, you know, looking to see, you know, what's in there, what could be interesting. Um, and I come across this tape, which is going to be hard to read because of the glare and etc. But what it says is JRC software, and it's got an address in Scottsburg, Indiana. And on one side it says Diamond Mike, and on the other side it says Tic Tac Toe. And I had a conversation with the person who wrote this program about, I want to say about 2 years ago. His name is John Coffey, Coffey. John was an early supporter. You know, I think he bought like a ZX80 and a ZX81. He cranked out a tremendous number of programs. And one of the things that he did is you'd, you know, send away for his catalog, and his catalog was just a program on one side of the tape. And, you know, so you'd load it and there'd be some menus and stuff. So when I talked to John several years ago, he said, I wrote this program called Diamond Mike. You know, has it ever been archived? And I said, no, I've never seen it. And so he says to me, well, you know, if you ever come across it, let me know. And so I saw this and I was like, oh, this is something that I need to check out. Which I did. I popped it into my crappy Walmart tape player and, you know, loaded up into Audacity, and it didn't want to work. I couldn't get it to load. And so I,
Well, were you able to record it as a WAV file then, or?
oh yeah, I'm sorry. I recorded it as WAV file, right?
Oh, okay.
And then I went into, what did I use? I used Fuse and I used 81 to just try to load from the raw WAV file.
Right. That I've never got
And
that to work.
and I get bands. I would get you know, I get some of the bands that you're supposed to see, right? But it wouldn't load. And so I was kind of, you know, bummed. And so I sent an email, you know, I put it up on Google Drive and sent an email to the list. And Larry and Mike, who's not here tonight, both, you know, worked on it. And they sent, you know, back comments like, you know, it seems like the pitch is a little low, you know, and, you know, David, are you sure this doesn't look like a 2068 tape? But those comments got me to thinking. It's like, oh, wait a minute, maybe it is my tape player. And one of the things that was in that first box from John was a 2020 tape player. I thought, oh, this will be the time to test out George's theory that this is a really good tape player. So I go find some AA batteries and I put the tape in the thing and I hook up to the computer.
Come on, it is.
Record it into Audacity, and boom, it worked. Just like that. I was so excited. So, you know, I loaded up, right? And up comes this catalog thing. And it says, you know, you can read my catalog, you can read this essay that I've written about why I'm leaving the Timex community, or you can play the Diamond Mike demo. I was like, oh, just the demo. So I was like, okay. So I pop the tape into, flip it over, and like the opposite side says tic tac toe, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'll just archive this tic tac toe
Well,
thing.
David, since I haven't been away and obviously you've been talking with the group, can I just ask a question? You recorded the whole side of the tape, of course.
I did,
Okay.
yes, whole side of both sides,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. I'm just making sure.
Yep, yep. So side 2 is labeled tic tac toe, right? Record the whole thing, go and load it into Fuse, I think it was. Turns out it's Diamond Mike, the full game. And I was like, yes. So I pop over to Facebook and I say, hey, John, I got your program. He's like, it's been 40 years. How did you do that? I said, not only do I have your program, John, do you want the tape back? I'll send it back to you. So after I take some pictures of the tape, I'm going to send it back to John, and he's going to be reunited with this thing that he made literally 40 years ago. And we have a
Does
new
that
game.
mean we don't have tic-tac-toe though?
We
Oh man.
Right, and it's a demo of Tic Tac Toe, I think, on the catalog.
Oh man. Tic-tac-toe is
I
the
know. I
best
know this
game.
disappoints you, Adam. However, Adam, what we do have is a new game for you to play
I will do
and
it.
test out.
Yeah.
So I just gotta move this thing so I can see what I'm doing. And my keyboard has to come back to life. So,
Although I have given up on color computers. I don't want anything that has color. Just ZX81 for me from now on.
well,
Yeah.
this game's in color.
You can mod your ZX81 to do chroma. People have done that.
That's right. That's right. So it's keyboard or joystick if you got the 20, if you got joystick for your 2068. And I will POQ and A. I'll give it a whirl here. P. So where's my guy? Oh, there he is. He's the little white. Oh, and I just got wiped out. There's sound effects too, by the way, but I turned them down because they're really loud in Cesaurix. Well, I think I got killed actually. This little yellow thing you see coming by, that's some sort of like atomic butterfly. I'm not entirely sure.
So it's a clone then of Rockford, I guess, or
what's it called?
It's a Boulder Dash clone.
Boulder Dash.
Yeah.
Is it? I have no idea.
Yeah, it's Boulder Dash.
Yeah.
Okay, I've never played Boulder Dash. I've never.
What? You used to have an Atari.
I did not. I hesitate to say this, but I'm not a video game player.
Oh man.
So let me also show you what is new. What's new? There we go. So Jay's newsletter, I uploaded a bunch of issues. There's Diamond Mike. Adam, I took your recordings and pictures and stuff and put them.
Oh, awesome. That's good to see.
Thank
you for doing that.
Page. Updated. Oh, right. So this was another thing that that came up is E. Arthur Brown Company. If you ever saw their ads or got their flyer, you may remember that he published this directory that is now available on Archive. Here's that Sinclair Survivalist handbook that I was telling you about. It even says library copy on it because it was part of the club library. There's actually a bunch of really decent programs in there. There's this football program, strategic football, looks pretty good. And there's stuff for Tim Swenson. There's some QL stuff.
I imagine that's all going to be on the tapes that came with you.
I don't think that this this was published by Time Designs. I don't think it came with a tape. I don't recall seeing it mentioned. Yeah, so that's work to do. I made a bunch of updates to some of these user group things. Oh, I wonder if it's here. Let me go to. I discovered something that may be of interest to folks who program on the 2068. So Tom Woods had this thing called a programmer's cartridge, programmer's toolkit that he sold. It was either a tape or it was a cartridge. And it turns out that this mystery doc file that I've had kicking around on my computer for a while is that thing. And so that's really cool. If you need to renumber an existing program, for instance, it's got that. And so it's available. You can download both the doc image to run it in an emulator, and there's also a ROM image for which I've removed the extra bytes that make it a doc image, so it can be burned directly to an EEPROM, and you can make your own cartridge with it. And the last thing that I want to share with you, I think I did send an email about this to the group list, is Joao Diogo Ramos from the Lode ZX Museum in Portugal and I got together a couple weeks ago to start a series of videos where we basically bring stuff to the table. We have a a topic that we're going to talk about, and so we bring what we know to the meeting and show each other whatever it is and interview each other and build the knowledge. And the first one of those premiered today. We had a little live chat going on while it was showing, and I will tell you, our initial plan for this was going to be about 60 minutes, and the recording is an hour and 45 minutes almost. Part of it's set up, talking about what Joao does, and and my website and stuff. But what we talked about was the 1500, and Joao has a bunch of 1500s. Carl, you spotted something in his tour of the museum that he did for us, and you said, "What's that thing?" And it was a silvery looking 1000. Right. So what's that
And you can
thing?
see on this picture here how popular the 2020 was. They made a whole big, huge mock-up of it.
Exactly. Carl, here's that thing you asked about.
Looks white.
It's actually silvery.
Okay.
And Joao said, he opened the inside of it. It's actually a issue 3 CX81 board, but you can see by the sticker that it was a path that they were exploring for the 1500.
Huh.
Yeah.
Timex
What are the
was?
keys on there?
Timex Portugal or Timex?
Timex.
Well, it had to be Portugal. It had to be Portugal.
Well,
I don't think
this predates the 1500 that we know. So this is
really.
Yes. Yeah. So this is
that's Timex America company was looking at this.
Both of them were working on it at the same time.
Okay.
Portugal, and that's an interesting thing that'll come out in one of the next meetings that we have, is that both Middlebury and Portugal were working on it. But somebody came up with the idea that we should have this, this mid-level 1000, the 1500. And step one apparently was creating a sticker that said Timex Sinclair 1500. And the reason I say this is because it gets into it in the video. When Joao put this on the screen, I was like, oh, now that explains these weird little labels that I got from Eric Johnson, which originally came from Middlebury. All right. And you can see that there's this, the one that's on the top right is the same sticker that was on that 1000 case.
So it's a black background, right?
Exactly. And it's actually physically larger than the indent in the 1500. So it won't fit in that 1500 case, but it does fit in the 1000. And then there's this other oddball sticker that I have. The one on the top right and the one in the 1500, they're both that kind of textured vinyl sticker. And this shiny silver one is more of the it's a paper sticker, like you know would get from uh, somebody making stickers for you, not making vinyl things. So those are my updates for you. I'm gonna stop sharing. There we go. I'm gonna stop myself. So
I was
there's
gonna
a lot of favorite
say,
parts.
I was gonna say, Carl, I think you know what to do now.
Huh?
Well, it's ironic that, he brings that up because I was looking for some gray paint at like Hobby Lobby and places like that, because that's, Hobby Lobby and Michael's, and they sell those little shortcuts spray paint. And for whatever reason, I could not find the gray. Everywhere I went in town, and even I looked online, they were out of stock online for the gray. And it turns out I just got the grays today, two spray cans from Hobby Lobby. But I already had 2 cans. I was looking at what I already had. It's like, well, crap, I already have 2 cans of gray from before at some point in time when I I had forgotten I got the gray. I know I had the chrome. I've got probably 4 cans of that, but so yes, I was going to use the third 1000 that came from Ryan, which I still have, and I still need to get the composite mod, right? That's the one where I was working on last, and the composite output is just horrible on that ULA, right? And then I ended up sticking the VLA 81 in there and seeing how that worked. But anyway, that was the one I was going to paint silver and gray and make it look like a a silver 1000 or to match the 1500 and the 2068 kind of color scheme.
So do you think you'll make a 1000 that silver, make a silver 1000?
Well, and I was thinking about something else that's kind of along those lines. And so if it's a 1000 board in there, but we're putting the 16K memory in there, right? That Stuart sent me some chips. And so we've done it with, obviously Adams and Ryan ZX81. And so I was like, well, that kind of makes it a 1500, right? For the most part. I mean, it's got 16K
Yeah.
RAM. Yeah, it doesn't have an SCLD in it like the 1500 real 1500s do. Still uses the ULA, but that's the main difference, was it came with 16K. So I'm thinking, well, what if we put a 1500 ROM in the 1000, right? Because it just got a few little changes in there, and then it would actually work with, it would actually auto boot the 1050 the 1510 cartridge adapter. Right, instead of you having to actually type in randomize user whatever that you would have to normally do on a 1000 using that part with that. So you could actually put the 1500s ROM in the 1000 board, and you would kind of combine the two together. And so that's kind of maybe what I'll do with the silver thing. Maybe actually turn it into a I don't know, maybe a 1400. I don't know, because I can print the labels out. I've got a bunch of them made up in a paper format, so I can go and change the numbers. But
Carl,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I have 1500 ROMs. Came from the same place as the stickers.
okay.
Came from Middlebury. If you want to make, a thing that looks like that thing that that Joao has, I will send you one of the stickers, and I'll send you a ROM.
Hey, that'll be cool.
Yeah, because you said the sticker fit that.
They fit the 1000.
Yeah, fits the 1000 case. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And and so we talked about the keyboard. The keyboard there is the regular keyboard, of course.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
That would be hard to change.
I guess they never made any. Yeah.
Well, see, that's kind of the other thing I'm going with this is I've been collecting parts to make a Timex Sinclair 2000.
Oh.
So if you look at the pictures that we have of the 2000, it does have the the fake like air vents like the 1500. I think the 1500's case is pretty much the 2000, right? I think they just reused it when they blew the 2000 off.
But are they fake air vents? Are they?
They're fake. Yeah, they're just indentations up there, just like on the 2068, right? They don't go through.
Yeah, they're go faster slots.
There we go.
But I was, collecting. Well, I just bought. I was going to get them from overseas, from the UK, but their shipping is, I don't know, just gone through the roof for some reason. I mean, just getting one little thing costs like 30 pounds to ship it here.
Wow.
I'm like, really? That's just crazy. Because I was also looking at getting a diagnostic cart for the ZX Spectrum, right? They have a diagnostic cart that they make over there. And I was like, well, why can't I just get a board and build it myself, but they don't have the plans available. So, okay, that I respect that, whatever. But anyway, so I got a black metal keyboard overlay, right? Because I thought it was silver. I was going to get a silver one, but I was looking at the pictures and no, it's a black one.
Yeah.
It's
like
it's not a
Spectrum.
silver keyboard overlay, right? It's black.
Yeah.
And then I got another keyboard, the keys themselves, right? The rubber mat,
bit.
because it has to replace the 1500s because it's a different, it's a totally different, well, not totally different, but different legends and of course color on it. And so I'll have to get a 1500 case. I mean, I have a couple of 1500s. I guess I can, use one of those cases. That's fine. I don't know what I'll put inside of it eventually. It's a Spectrum board doesn't fit in there. I don't
Yeah, it does.
think.
It should.
Does it?
Yeah. And a Harlequin would fit inside there.
And the 1500 case, yeah, maybe the bottom's the same.
It's just a Spectrum case.
Yeah,
with,
the bottom is the
with
same.
go faster
Okay.
slots.
Is it going to have
Okay.
different mounts?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they moved the mounts. I think it's the same.
Well, that's part of this whole project, right? I mean, to get it to look like a 2000, but there's not really very good, clear pictures.
Right.
There's just some, and there's some coloring that they put up in the top right, like the red, blue, green, they're little dots, little squares.
Yep.
I don't know if I might be able to recreate that, but anyway, it's just a little project. We'd never really seen one lately, or I don't know if we've ever seen one in real life. Whatever happened to those 2000 prototypes that if they made it?
Do we know what some of the specs were?
Well, I think they were straight from the Spectrum. It was just going to be like the 1000 was, right?
Okay,
to the ZX81.
So you'd need an interface one for joystick and that.
Yeah.
Right. At least it would work on that, right? Because it would be a Spectrum inside. Well, it's pretty much a Spectrum case. It's just the Timex design language on it. But the point is why I don't know anybody that's ever had one. We've never seen, quote unquote, a real one. Not that there were really any real ones to see, but there was definitely some prototypes, because when they announced the 2000, and like Creative Computing and the places that you do see pictures of it, they do show something that looks like it was physical. I don't think they made deep bakes back then. Or
Actually,
made
they
virtual.
did. They would make these mock-ups. Do you remember?
They were they were in 3D back then.
Yeah, right. Do you remember Lon talking about going to CES and how they had a thing sitting on the counter, but the actual computer was a series of boards underneath underneath the bench, as it were.
Right.
Yeah.
There's rumors back from 1984 or maybe 85, before the Amiga came out, that people were looking under the bench when the actual real Amiga 1000 prototype was being shown, that they thought that wasn't real. No computer could possibly do that.
That the real computer had to be somewhere.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
But anyway, those are a couple of things that I've just been kind of working on as time goes on.
Someone on Facebook in one of the Timex groups has been posting some stuff. I think he's in Europe, but he posted a question. He asked if the Timex diagnostic ROM, EEPROM, whatever diagnostic cartridge had been found, and I was like, do you mean, he said that there was a message in the forums, and I was like, do you mean maybe in the Yahoo groups? And that might have been Carl, and he's like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. So you need to,
Yeah, I did find some scanned in documents. I made a little manual for it.
Okay.
So I have that, but I was reading it. I'm like, well, this is kind of a crappy manual. I wrote it. but explains how to, the menu that comes up and, what all the functions do. But yeah, I want to try and find that as well, obviously, for not just for everybody else's edification, but my own as well.
Right.
Well, didn't you say you found the listing?
I thought I did find the listing because I know it's in some of these, when you're in high school, you have these folders, right? These
Yep.
big, and they were Pac-Man. I think I had a bunch of Pac-Man. There were Pac-Man folders, and that's where all the paperwork was inside of that. So, I mean, I remember seeing that in my head, physically, but where the heck it is right now, or even if it still exists, I didn't throw it away, or I
You
sure
mean
wouldn't have thrown it away. But
things like this, Carl?
yeah, there were, and they had the folders where you could slide sheets of paper into, but they were Pac-Man ones, and
Yeah, this has a
yeah.
crap in it.
Oh dear.
Exactly. And I had all the printouts, and they were stapled to, I think, maybe some sheets of paper that had more detailed information. Yeah, Bill Gates.
Is that the actual from the newspaper from 1976 or whenever that happened?
No, it was a reprint.
Oh, because I mean, it's possible you have it here and here in town. So
Right. It was Albuquerque, right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's probably the only diagnostic cartridge I think anybody. I don't think anybody ever made another one,
Right.
or
You're the only
anybody
one
else.
that we know
Yeah,
about.
so
Yeah.
I mean, there's a diagnostic card for the Spectrum, right? Obviously, but that there's several of those out in the wild, but I don't think anything was made for the 2068, unless Portugal made something.
It's one of those E. Arthur Brown things you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Jay.
Yeah, I remember drooling over that picture, guys. That's
I think a lot of us did.
yeah, that was like, oh wow. And that's an inspiration for the micro drives that I'm also gonna paint silver.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you have to sand off well, I think I used a razor blade and kind of trimmed off the Sinclair that's embedded on the top of it.
Yeah.
That's raised, the raised Sinclair, like the Sinclair had on everything. But you have to cut that off, and then you got to sand it down and get it smooth, and yeah.
Too much. So, oh, hey, awesome, Dennis.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
Dennis,
Long
is this the first time you've joined us?
Yes.
So, Dennis, tell us about yourself. And is that? Oh no, that's just your regular monitor. It's not slow scan.
No.
For a second,
This is
If
an
he's going to
ancient.
talk, will you please make it so he's whatchamacallit it highlighted?
spotlighted. Yes,
Spotlighted,
I had to wait for him to show up in the right spot.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
There you
Now
go.
you're back, Dennis.
Thank you. Yeah, I had ham operator from 1980 on, and I was given probably about 15, 20 years ago a box that had 3 Sinclair ZX81s, and one was bare board, 2 were cases. Last year I replaced both keyboards on the case ZX81s. They work. One the ULA is a little weak on the video output, so I may end up having to find another ULA for that. But the thing I realize about all computers is they're all computers. People say, "Oh, that's nothing. It can't do anything." Wait a minute. There's all sorts of ways to interface to these things. And again, like I always say, these are computers. So depending on how creative you want to get with the code and stuff, you can make them do whatever you want to do, and you can make them interface with whatever you want to do. Depends on how much effort you want to put towards it. But yeah, I never look at these little toys as toys. I look at them as actual computers, and the ZX81 fits that. I've got a collection of Commodore equipment, everything from VIC-20 C64s, 128 Amigas, SX64s. But I really enjoy because of the simple design, the ZX81s, and I haven't upgraded them. Like I said, I've got the new keyboards on them, but I kind of want to keep them stock. But I'll tell you, there's those memory upgrades look really good because you can have one cart that has all the software, all the games, all the vintage games and everything. But I kind of like to keep things original. So I'll probably figure out some way to do plug-in modifications.
Well,
where I
yeah,
can-
if you use the backbit cart, Dennis, then you can get all the benefits of having 16K, and also like you can load P files instantly.
And I actually bought on eBay. I did buy the extended memory. I popped it open and evaluated it, and yeah, it's a mess with all the all the chips in it for 16K. I think they were all 1K chips. Pretty interesting stuff, but I can't remember if they were 1x4s, but yeah, it's all pretty interesting. But yeah, I love all these computers. I do have a TRS-80 Model 1, Level 2 in the original box. So just in the room right there. But then, of course, I never use that because it's such a noisy computer. There was a program for that computer that if you put an AM radio next to it, it had a program that you could play songs on the AM radio.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
how-
we had the
that's
same
how
thing
much-
for the 81, this 1000. You could do the same sort of effect.
Yeah. And the thing is, you just have to realize that any line you connect to it, if you don't have ferrites on it, and if you don't take precautions, they'll radiate depending on the length of the line where
Yeah.
they resonate at.
Dennis, is the Model 2, is that the one that has like a built-in 10 megabyte hard drive or something like that?
No, it was the Model 1.
Oh, the Model.
The Model. In fact, let me grab it real fast.
Well, okay.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
Well, it was, I was reading recently about, it was the, what was it, 81? That those FCC regulations that restrictor kicked in.
Yep.
And then a lot of makers had to retread some stuff to get around to
Yeah.
comply. What was it? Apple like didn't include the RF modulators; they just had monitor output.
Yeah, but they left the pins out so you could have third party that you just plug in.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
way
it is
to
the same
survive
thing. Hmm. Oh, hang on, Dennis. I'm gonna spotlight you.
oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the
Classic
original
Model
Trash
1s.
80. Yeah.
Yeah,
Be
this was
polite.
Yeah, I hate people calling it Trash 82, but you know.
Yeah, me too.
well, they're computers. They're like anything.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is, people don't realize that, they look at this little stuff and they go, well, that can't do anything. It's like, well, wait a minute. You have to remember when these were introduced to us, first of all, it was amazing what they could do because the limitations of all the hardware. RAM was extremely expensive if it was available. There's a lot to these, and depending, like I said, depending on how much effort you want to put towards them. And then there's a level 2 basic reference manual.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
So yeah,
Very cool.
I collect all the paperwork for them in hard copy, as well as going to that archive site, that Internet Archive site,
Yeah.
which is not just for computers. That Internet Archive site is for just about anything you can think of.
Well, Dennis, thank you for finding us. That's
Well, I have a question for Dennis.
Go ahead.
You didn't actually tell us how you used your Timex computer back when you owned it originally, or did you not have it back in the 80s?
No, I didn't have the Timex back in the 80s,
Oh,
but I did see that there is a program to decode Morse code with the Timex Sinclair, the 81. So I'm interested in trying that at some point. And like I said, just making sure that, and I do have an original power supply, but this is all fun stuff. This is all just very neat technology, and it's still very capable. So I just thought I'd let you know. I just thought I'd jump in and say hello.
That's a nice Akai real
Yeah,
drill
right.
back there too. Too bad it's not a Pioneer, but hey, I'll forgive you for that.
Well, it goes with my Sonys, my TX, my Tascams. It goes with all my reel-to-reel collection that I have because I restore them. So
Cool. Hey, I want to ask Dario. Are you there?
Yes,
Dario?
hi.
Hi.
I'm Dario. I'm from Argentina.
Oh,
I
nice.
recently started to bother David about software. I'm started researching to see if I can recover some Quicksilver titles.
Yeah. Oh, right. Dario. Yes, we chatted via email. Right. So Dario has recovered
Sorry,
And
the
actually,
intrusion
I wanted to ask.
into the Zoom.
I wanted to ask you a question, Dario, in email. And that is, okay, so let me set the scene here first. That Dario reached out to me and said, some of the programs that you have on the site are not the right versions. And I've got, he says, I've got the right versions. So Dario comes to us with all of this software that he's recovered. In particular,
I do not.
Quicksilver, Quicksilva rather.
Yep, Quicksilver.
Wrote software for the Spectrum, and in the mid 80s or so, the guy behind Knighted Computing reached out to, I'm not entirely sure who, but basically he got a bunch of Quicksilver programs converted to run natively on the 2068. Tomahawk, I think, is one of them. There's some other jet fighter game of some sort as well. And then also Quicksilver, unfortunately for them, they set up a office in San Antonio, I think it was, or maybe Houston, somewhere in Texas. They'd set up an office in like maybe late 1983 or very early 84, right? And of course, we all know what happened. And so Dario told me in email that, and Dario, correct me if I'm wrong, that when they got the 2068, it came with a bunch of these programs from Timex. Is that right, Dario? Is that how your perception?
Yeah, that's correct. And by the way, sorry, my English and my throat is not in good shape tonight.
That's okay.
So let me know if something is I'm bumbling. Let me know. I can repeat. I'm not sure how the Timex got distributed in Argentina. I remember I got from my father a sealed box for the time in 1868. And inside the box was the machine with the Horizon tape, the demonstration, and 6 games from Quicksilver.
Yeah.
And those games were a specific version for the Timex. Some of them changed the loading screen. Others are changed to work because the original one was not compatible.
Yeah.
And because the Timex was sealed, I kind of assumed this is something coming from Timex in agreement with Quicksilver.
And I think you're correct. I think, in Argentina, that may have been the case. Here in America, we got this terrible little cassette tape that had like a keyboard tutor and,
Turtle graphics.
Turtle graphics. Yes. Yeah. A real low quality version of logo.
And I do remember from back in the day, Quicksilver to me personally was one of the better. They had good quality software, not cheap crap, or they were one of the better companies to me personally. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't remember. Did they make Anti-Attack? I think maybe Anti-Attack was from them.
And I have
remember.
the feeling they already were on the market because they were strong on the CX81.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I believe they were around before the Timex 2068.
Cool.
But how on what arrangement they had with Timex, I don't know. So I'm trying to see if I can recover and preserve everything. I have the original tapes. I need to preserve them. It's on my father's attic right now. And beyond that, I want to understand how those were published, because we have the Night Computer publication that I believe that's were very late, 56, 5.
Yeah, I think it was late. You're right.
So this title were released by Quicksilver very early. I sent to you, David, scan for one inline for
Yeah.
Astro Blaster.
Yeah.
It was very interesting because the name was changed. Cyber Attack, something like that. I
Okay.
believe because Astro Blaster was an arcade back in the day, so perhaps they don't have the rights to produce the game. But that inline says published by Quicksilver and compatible with the Timex 2064, 68, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So that happens.
Very cool.
So right now I'm thinking that we have a Quicksilver release, a Quicksilver Timex release because it was bundled with the machine, and perhaps a late night computers release.
Well, I was looking at the list, you know, like Bugaboo. Bugaboo is one of them that I remember playing. That's a pretty good game.
That was on the package.
Right. And what was the other one that I just saw? Anyway, there was another one in there too that but Bugaboo, I don't think Timex credited Quicksilver because I'm pretty sure they had made a cartridge for that. There's a Bugaboo 2068 cartridge, right?
Oh, I have no memory of a cartridge.
Bugaboo the
Bugaboo.
Flea. Yeah,
The-
that's
The ones I remember on the bundle, I need to recheck to see are the Mine Out, Timegate, Astro Blaster, 3D Strategy, Bugaboo, and the Chess Player. It's Smuggler's Cove. That was
Smuggler's Cove. That's the other
text
one. That was
adventure.
that was a good game too.
And I remember the tapes very particular. There is no inline. There was only the tape with the name printed directly on the tape.
wow.
No,
No
you should-
inlane,
we
no
should-
instructions, anything. Just the
We
tape.
should get some. You should get some pictures of those. That'd be great
Yeah,
to
I
have
was
too.
absolutely. I was looking because on internet I saw a picture for that collection because I was looking for it just to check my sanity because no one was mentioning this at all, and there is someone with a picture of the tapes, but I
Hmm.
can't find it. But if I can gather them from my father's attic, I can take a picture. And I want to recover and preserve the ones that I don't find the versions around the internet.
So, Dario, I'll do some digging over this coming weekend because I know where I have a good idea of where Quicksilver ads are, and I can get you some, some information from the U.S.
And I personally may be confusing Bugaboo with Horus, right? I mean,
Horace, that's right.
yeah.
Oh, the
Hor-
Horus.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Horus is another one that, and I know they make Horus cartridges. Maybe they didn't make any Quicksilver cartridges.
Right. And
Oh,
Dario, you're
yeah.
not the only Argentinian. Usually Gustavo's here, but he's got a special occasion this evening. He's in
Oh.
I think he's in Buenos Aires today, but I don't think he's always in Buenos Aires.
Oh, it's going to be great to be in contact with him.
Yeah. So keep coming to the meetings because Gustavo comes
Absolutely.
to almost every one.
Yeah, and especially
And-
the Sunday ones because that's kind of more for you guys, the other time zones.
yeah, because it's what 11 o'clock for you, Dario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most- by the way, another thing I have to I need to send to you. I have the inlines for the the United States release for Cyberzone. That was a game by Subsync,
Okay.
I believe. And something interesting, the inline there is, they say that it's voice activated.
Oh.
And I think that the game is doing is listening to the ear connection, and there is sound, is fires. And makes sense because I remember when I played the game on my 2068, it was firing on its own. I didn't know why.
You're remembering correctly there because I had that game as well on my TS 2068. And what I did was plug in my tape recorder into the mic socket and stick it on record. And then I would scream at it to shoot at the aliens. And I just made a lot of noise with that thing. It was a good little trick, but your voice really took a hit.
Nice confirmation
game was
after all
this?
those years.
This
Which
was
game
with
was this?
Cyberzone.
We all want to get in on the screaming.
Well, you can still do it.
Which game was it?
Cyberzone.
Oh, Cyberzone. Oh,
Cyberzone.
okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that was
that's a good one.
game that was adapted for the Timex with sound and the joystick port.
Oh yeah, right. It says right there on the thing.
It's interesting because the version is very similar to the Commodore 64 version, but the Spectrum version is different. Seems to be earlier or something like that.
So here's a couple of screen captures.
That one.
And lasers are controlled by keys, joystick, or I should change this, to yelling at your computer. Oh my gosh. Oh, that would be hilarious. And Alan, you said you did this a lot? Oh dear. What happened?
Put up one time to show you at the house. So
Oh boy.
I showed it to you. So not even
Did
that long
you?
ago. Yeah, I did.
I don't remember. Maybe we didn't get far enough to that one screen there because
Yeah.
it looks like the boss is inside a ship. And same thing
No,
with
he's at the
Phoenix.
top all the time.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
it's all right. It's all right. We're getting older.
Did we lose Paul? We lost Paul. Oh darn. I wanted to ask Paul about his pictures that he had posted to the list.
What were the
All right.
pictures of?
His collection, and one of the pictures that he showed had a bunch of EPROMs in it, and one of the EPROMs looked like it said that it was a corrected EXROM, and I think it was Ray Kingsley that put some effort into fixing some of the bugs in the EXROM, and you could get it from him for, I don't know, $17 or something like that back in the day. And so I was hoping that Paul could tell us a little bit about that, but maybe next time. Anyway, anybody else got stuff? I know Jeff, have you made any progress on your projects?
Oh, heck no. I've just logged in and listened to all the progress you guys make, and then maybe I'll make progress one day and can talk. So, no, I appreciate hearing all the cool stuff that's happening.
All right. Well, keep on trucking. We just, we're here to support you.
Looks like he's got a Timex shirt on.
Oh, yeah. Which one do you have? The one.
The 1000. Yeah,
Oh,
if
yeah.
I have nothing, at least I wear the shirt.
There you go. Nice. Nice. Conrad, are you new to us, Conrad? I kind of feel like I recognize the letters after your name, but I can't remember. Let's see if Conrad's there. Maybe not.
Yeah, I've been here before.
Okay.
The letters after my name are my ham radio call sign.
Okay. So what is V, Conrad? What
Victor
is
British Columbia in Canada.
British Columbia. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that doesn't look like a U.S. ham call sign.
Nope.
So, Conrad, you said you're
Sorry,
in British Columbia. Were you involved in the Vancouver user group?
No, I haven't been.
Okay.
I didn't realize there was one.
There was one in the 80s, in the early 90s.
Okay, I was in Alberta at that time.
Oh, okay.
So, nope.
So what, how did you get into the Sinclair world?
I bought one when I was in college. They were on for like $99. So I played around with it for a while.
Yeah. Cool.
And going through my stuff here, it's like, oh, I got this thing. So I haven't had a chance to dig it out and plug it in. And
well, we've been working on documenting some emulators. If you wanted, go that way, and actually I'll ask Tim about that in a few minutes, but eventually we'll have a document that explains how to start, how to get started with most of the popular emulators. And if you go to timexsinclair.com and go to the page for the 1000, there's a set of links on there. It's under the heading of related content or something like that. Links to articles that are about the 1000, including opportunities to type in programs if that's your jam. Lots of things to download. If you wanted to type in programs and help us archive them, we won't object to that.
And Adam, ironically, just recently was introduced to the 1000. So and he's a convert now.
Well, yeah, the 2068. Down with the 2068.
Yeah.
Hey, David.
Yes.
I hit your main page and it reminded me of something I was going to mention. Like, you have the computers listed there, but you've missed one.
Are you going to tell me I'm missing the Spectrum?
Yeah.
No.
No?
I'm not missing the Spectrum. Was it for
Where
sale
is
in the
it?
United States?
Oh.
See, there you go.
Okay. All right.
And I say that, Ryan, because somebody actually emailed me yesterday or something with the exact same thing. Your site doesn't have the Spectrum. I was like, yeah, that's right, because this is about the North American market.
I'm glad you stick by your guns there, actually, because there's a lot of information out there on the Spectrum, and it's really nice to have a site dedicated specifically to the machines here in America.
Yeah, I mean, this is
and elsewhere that we're similar.
It's about us and our community, and the Spectrum is awesome, and they've got their own community. They can, and they're
And
really
luckily
good at
there was the
documenting
Spectrum, because otherwise we wouldn't have all the software to use at our 2068s with the ROM cards.
Yes, exactly. Hey, Tim, you want to tell us what, if any, progress we've made?
Well, the last thing we're waiting for is someone to do documentation for 81 on Windows.
Yeah, that'd be me. This week. It'll happen.
Yeah, that's why I said someone. Once that's done, I'll finalize all the text. I'll pass it by a few folks just for review of the text. Because the way that Scribus works is Scribus is not a word processor. It's a desktop publishing program. So you want to get all your text finalized in OpenOffice, and then you dump it into Scribus and do all your layout work. So I want to get all the work done in the text complete, and then we'll do the layout in Scribus. Okay. And then I've got everyone sent me images. I have to get a consistency across the different subjects. I've kind of modified some of the layouts people sent me so they're kind of the same, kind of this. I took out a few options because, like, well, this is beginner, so let's not give them, oh, there's A, B, and C, and you really don't want to do C because, just A. You're all get, So, and then it's all just to how to get the emulator going, get it fired up. This will not be a document like, oh, you want to use this particular emulator, here, everything you need to know. No, it's just to get you up and running. And then each individual emulator has their own documentation, mostly, except for ZStarX.
Well, I would argue mostly not.
Well,
it's what people call documentation is the man page that lists all the command switches. That's a different deal.
I know Warrior's got some really nice documentation.
Well, 81, that's perhaps the exception, it seems.
Yeah, 81 was generally simple to use. ZStarX is not easy to use. I would say that and Fuse, I'm not too sure about the documentation there because I haven't really looked into that one. But I mean, we could put together a document for each one, but that's a lot of work to put.
What I was going to suggest though is maybe for everyone who's contributed for a particular emulator is to suggest like a just a couple few settings or places to look that you really want to know. Otherwise, you're just going to be annoyed with it. Rather than just here's how to install it and launch it. There's maybe a couple, three critical settings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. We can generally add it. So if anyone out there says, oh, this is something I didn't know that certain emulator had, and now I do, or here's a particular feature of this emulator that I use all the time, send it to the list, send it to me directly. I can just kind of be the clearinghouse and collecting all of them, and then put them in the document. As we discuss Fuse or ZSARX, I may put it in a separate section, because you've got ZSARX for Windows and ZSARX for Linux. They're separate sections, but kind of the same tool. So maybe I'll just put a whole separate chapter just for emulator tips. I was going to do how to do program development with BASIC and with assembly, but I really haven't found any good Linux assembly tools that I know how to do it with ZX81, but not with 2068. So something I just left it with BASIC and just left with the ZMake base. And so, okay, we're all just going to use this one tool because it works for all the emulators, all platforms. I even ported ZMake base to a DOS, so it works there. So we have a separate chapter on just the individual emulators on tips and tricks. So if you've got any tips and tricks on any particular emulators, send it to me directly or send it to the list and we'll start collecting them.
Well, yeah, tips and tricks is fine. I guess what I was thinking of more was like what I might say is more like essential or somewhat essential. Like an example was the first thing in Fuse when everyone fires up the Spectrum, they're like, why is the screen so small?
Why is it so small?
That's like every time.
Yeah.
And
yes, like that would be a tip and trick. Hey, it's essential. Like I mentioned, I emailed the guy that wrote ZSARX, asked him a question, and also said, hey, why don't you do a manual? But he answered my question, and then I posted that to the list, and David's like, oh, I've been looking for that.
Yeah.
So those sorts of things can go into the document. And maybe if we come up with how to do it on one emulator, we then document it for all the other emulators.
Yeah.
One that I have a problem with ZSARX is normally if I write something for any of the emulators, I'm not going to save it. It's just, I write it, I code it, I use it, and I'm done. But if you want to do something like ViewCalc, you got to save it. And so maybe we'd have an example like, hey, here's how you load something like ViewCalc or ViewFile, enter data, and then here's how you save it to tape for long-term, and across all the different emulators, Fuse, ZSARX, Warievo, or so on. So
yeah, I think the load and save would be what I would say is kind of an essential.
Yep.
Ability.
But hopefully we have tips across any of them. We should have tips for all three. If you want to do A, here's how to do it across all the different emulators.
Yeah, so then it sounds like
right now we're staying only to the 2068 at the moment because that was kind of the key question.
Yep.
So
yeah, that was Paul's initial question, how to get this thing to work. So we should probably have a test suite sort of, decide on 2 or 3 programs to do, like you said, Tim, show how to do that, load that program.
Could do a simple, hey, type in 10 print hello world and then how to save that to tape. That'd be something, like the example of ZMake base was simple print hello. A 1-liner and a 100-liner work just the same when doing ZMake base. So
true, very true. Cool. Okay, well, this week is my my 81 Windows, right?
Yep, that's what we're waiting for.
Okay, all right, I'm on it.
And speaking of Tim, I don't know, recently, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I was, my mind goes off into these tangents now that I'm old. And so I've got a browser window list that's probably, 200 tabs long, right? Because as your brain goes. Anyway, Tim's name came up on something. I was something triggered me on it. And It was the 2068 converting programs, the Spectrum assembly language programs to run on the 2068. And you
Right.
know, Tim has an article on his site that kind of delves into that, and he mentions a book, or not really a book, but it's something that where do I have it here? Oh God, I just had it up. Anyway, Dr. Lawrence, God dang it.
Oh,
Dreyer?
Ian Logan?
Well,
No,
it's based on
there's-
him, but it's he made a whole document documenting the 2068 ROM and where all the Spectrum ROMs line up with it.
So there were
Right,
two
and
ROM disassemblies for the 2068.
Yeah.
One was just like a raw output, and the other one I
Right.
think was Dr. Lloyd Dreyer, or
Mhm.
something
yes,
like that.
this is his book, right?
Right.
And
I
I
think in
found
that
it.
one it does link different. Says it has, you know, if you're looking for this ROM call, here's what the Spectrum is, here's the 2068 is.
Yes.
So that
And
was
so,
useful.
but the problem is you know, you go to archive.org and you look at the document and you're trying to do any kind of searching in it. Well, it's not searchable.
Oh, it's
So
terrible.
that kind of limits it. Yeah, that kind of limits its usefulness to a point. So I, you know, obviously I downloaded it and I just ran it through my Adobe Acrobat and I made it searchable. Right.
That's
So now
nice.
it's a searchable
I mean,
document.
I
Go ahead.
I used it, and I could, so I searched it by saying, okay, everything I'm looking for is a hex code, and I just go down 3 pages. Nope, not far enough. 3 more pages. Up there we go. There's hex code I'm looking for, or the memory location. So it's not that bad.
Yeah, I was just thinking, just from a modern standpoint, if I pulled in an assembly program and I just made a disassembly of it, right, and then I could get all the, I want to see where all the calls are. Show me a list of all the calls, and then I would get obviously a list of all the calls, and then I could look, you know, I have the hex addresses, but now I can search his document, right? It just makes it that much easier. I could search his document for this call. Where is that in the 2068?
Right.
Right.
Now,
I understand
thing,
that, you know, when they did make the 2068 ROM, they kind of just kept pushing things further and further down, right? So that is one way to look it up. You're right.
now, one
But
thing I did find out was that some of the Spectrum calls, they don't jump to the proper call start point. So let's say that there's call A is at 1000, call B is at 2000. Well, they jump at 1500 sometimes. They jump in the middle of a normal call. So that direct translation doesn't always work. You had to go and say, okay, they're jumping in the middle of a call. What's the equivalent hex equivalent assembly on the 2068? Oh, that's where they're jumping. So that document I did, one of the things I did was just create a list of all the ones that I ran across. Is okay, here's what they did on the Spectrum. Here's what I translate to the 2068 for. And eventually, if more people do this, we can build up a table, a longer table of more numbers. And then the next conversion is easy because we've already done the conversions already. It's like, you know.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm uploading it to the chat. I guess I probably should send it to somebody else because it's going to take a while. It's 324 megs.
Oh,
it's not a small document.
That's
but,
not going to upload to the chat.
Okay, but well, it's showing it is, but it's, you know, it's taking its time.
Oh,
but that's the link. That's.
Can you convert it to can you OCR it? Just convert it to pure text?
Well, probably I can, but some of the pages aren't that contrasty, right? Some of them are fairly light.
Yeah.
And usually when I scan documents like my magazines and things I want to archive, this is how I do that, and it generally comes out pretty good. I'm sure there's going to be tons of problems where it can't find it, but I mean, I kind of gave it a cursory test and it found everything that I threw at it. But I'm sure that it's not going to, you know, it's not going to be 100%.
Right.
But it's going to be better. Go ahead.
I ran across these documents not that long ago, and even though just in pure image format, they were far better than having nothing at all.
Right. Well, I've never really seen that kind of detailed document that Dr. Lawrence guy made. That's
right.
You know, really nice. And you know, eventually at some point in time, I would like to convert some of the more popular Spectrum games over to work on the 2068 when I, another freaking project, somewhere down the road. But, it's nice to see that kind of documentation because none of that's ever going to change. They're not going to make a new ROMs for any of this. So, and I think maybe, I don't know, maybe some people would like to translate some of their own, Spectrum stuff. I don't think anybody wants to take 2068 software and run it on the Spectrum so much because there's not really that much, right? But there's a ton of stuff for the Spectrum that I think would be really nice to run on a 2068.
There is the program called Old School, SKOOL.
Yeah.
That helps people reassemble Spectrum games.
Yep.
And I think it probably modified or used, with the 268 by just going in, getting the assembly, and then modifying the system calls as necessary, and then compiling it. So
right.
But there's a number of games that have already been old schooled, so to speak. They've been disassembled. So that's one place I haven't dug into.
Is that called School Kit? Not
School
Old School?
Kit.
Oh yeah, School Kit. I think that's it. There's a school there somewhere.
There's
Old
another one
School's a
called
better name.
DZ80. There's another one called DZ80, and what they do is you give it a start address to look into the binary, and it will progress through all the code branches and identify which portions are code and what isn't. So it turns it into a disassembly that you can reassemble. So this kind of thing kind of sounds like you can almost automate it if you have a database of substitutions for ROM calls. You could almost get the computer to do the whole thing.
I'll have to remember that. Well, or maybe it's something that Tim could update that part of his site because I don't know when the last time that probably even got touched.
That would be really useful for me with my disassembling of Time Blasters, actually. I mean, it's a Z81 program, but I use a program called, it's made for the Spectrum, but it works, with any Z80 program. And it's if you're using it with the Spectrum, then you're able to like give it an address of wherever you start, like any normal disassembler. But you also can give it like a program that is already, like one of the emulators, I don't remember which one, but will output you run the program for a while, and then you output that to a file, and then you point to this file with the disassembler, and it knows where the program is jumping to, and it automatically will disassemble what has been run, and what it knows is actually code, and it won't try to go through, the data bytes, which is handy.
I mean, it works for the Spectrum. It should work for the 2068 as long as it's not hard coded to know Spectrum ROM code. Spectrum ROM locations.
Were you talking about an emulator?
Give it a shot, Adam.
Yeah, I am talking about an emulator. I haven't never used it in that fashion, so I can't really give very much information. But the program I'm talking about that I use for my disassembly is called DZ80, and it I think I gave some links to it in the group before I left. But it like I'm looking at it here, and you can browse to something called an op map that is output, but I don't remember which emulator does it. It's only one of them, and it like as you run the program, you get this something called an op map, which you can save as a file, and then you open up this DZ80, point it to that, and it'll at least disassemble the code that is actually code as the program is running. That's a good way to start. I would imagine. I haven't done it that way. I have to kind of go old school.
An emulator would do a better job because it can follow the self-modifying code. So if you have self-modifying code in there, then these offline tools like DZ80 doing it by itself rather than having input from an emulator, it doesn't always catch everything right. So there's a little bit of manual adjustment quite often.
Of course, yeah.
I put links to both SchoolKit and I think the right link to DZ80 is it inkland.org.uk. Does that ring a bell? Okay.
Yeah, it's Mark Inkley, so that sounds right.
Okay. And Adam, you asked earlier if that Lloyd Drager book was one of the things that I used in my book, and yeah, it was. And the other disassembly that I think Tim mentioned, Bob Orfeld's disassembly, which is closer to just a memory dump. It's not much in the way of actually trying to figure out what the code does. And interestingly enough, there's some places where Bob and Lloyd don't agree on what's happening. And yeah,
Then they have to get Dr. Ian Logan in there to mediate
Yeah.
for him then.
yeah. And to your point, Carl, yeah, that Lloyd Drager book, it's low contrast. It was a dot matrix thing, and archive.org's OCR of it was terrible, unnavigable, which is unfortunate.
Well, I can send you mine. I mean, like I said, it's still uploading into the chat, but I can definitely send it to you. But it was, like I said, I just threw some cursory, 4 or 5 different calls
Yeah.
or different things, labels. Maybe I'd see a label and I'd say, well, is it going to find this? And it did. So I'm not saying it's 100%, but I'm sure it's
Right.
leaps and bounds better than what archive.org does.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that the Drager document wasn't better published out there. I mean, you read timelines, you read all the what time designs, all the different newsletters. No one really mentioned it much. So of course,
That's the first time I've heard it.
But yeah. So, but this was done back in the day, back in the late '80s when the guy did it.
Yep.
So, but no one really talked about it. So, and then you get a hold of the advanced guide from Sam's. The guy there talks about the function dispatcher, which is interesting, but there's no reason to use the function dispatcher. It does nothing extra other than being slightly convoluted. Just use the regular ROM calls and they work just fine.
Yeah.
Well, the reason you would have that was, of course, like if they ever changed the ROM in the future, but of course they never did. So
right.
Yeah.
But that was,
or if they, the bus expansion unit probably could have used the function dispatcher to some, to use it a lot better than the way it's just stuck in the machine right now. You're right. Just the ROM's never going to change. Just call the ROM.
Right. It's kind of like on the QL, that expansion port on the right-hand side that was modified. It was in the, it was designed to be a cutout, but never used. And no one ever used it.
Dario mentioned in the chat that the Timex was so popular in Argentina that pirates would convert software mainly by changing the loader. But there's a lot of pirated software for the 2068 that was converted from the Spectrum, is what it sounds like he's saying. That's pretty funny.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There is a bunch of software because the Timex was so popular and software was not compatible. So pirates basically strip the software from the loader and they create their own loader so the software can load on the Timex. And there's a bunch of them because they need a catalog to sell this software for the Timex.
Yeah, because I think one thing that kind of kicked me off to the 2068 ROM calls was there's a friend of mine, a good friend of mine when I was a kid. We went to different high schools, but he also had a 2068, and he made a document that basically, not as detailed obviously as the one that that we're talking about here, but that did the same thing. It looked and saw where the Spectrum ROMs calls were, and he had the Timex equivalent. And I think I actually have I scanned it in. I didn't publish it anywhere because it's just basically like, here's the ROM call, here's the Spectrum ROM call, here's the Timex one. That's just a bunch of lists, right? So it's not really, it would be useful to somebody that's doing that, right? But looking at a bunch of hex addresses is not really useful to anybody else, right? But I just remember him doing that, and I have the documentation that he made when he did that. But this is back in the day, back when we were, that was a thing. Right, we wanted all Spectrum had all these software products, and we didn't have crap for the 2068. So it's like it's easy enough to convert it, right? Unless it's what else you should be able to convert Spectrum stuff to 2068 because there's nothing in the 2068 that the Spectrum doesn't have or it has extra, right? It's the other way around, right? The 2068 has all this extra stuff that the Spectrum never had. So.
Memory
but anyway,
perhaps is the only thing I can think of that perhaps can be a problem.
And speed can be a problem.
Well, as long as you're not trying to use one of the add-on interfaces.
Yeah, the interfaces.
Carl,
Anyway,
it
I
might
have
be useful to have that for historical purposes, just to preserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have it OCR'd, and yeah, so maybe I'll send it to David as well,
Yeah.
or I could, that way,
just the
it's
scan of the
just
original.
another document.
But just even the scan of
That's
the
what-
original writing would be nice, because that
Yeah.
shows
Yes.
what the original
Yeah.
document looked like. This is what the person wrote, handwriting was like.
Yep.
Yeah, it is
Historical
handwriting.
purposes.
It is handwritten. It's not a computer printout or anything. It's handwritten documents.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of charm to that.
Yeah. Because I mean, like I said, that was a kind of a thing we were doing back then, was trying to convert some of these popular Spectrum programs to run on our 2068s, right? Without having to use because it was kind of hard to get a Spectrum ROM back then. Not kind of hard. I mean, I think a couple companies sold them, and you could install them in there, but I don't think a lot of people did that. They just wanted to load it right onto the machine that they had.
I have run across a few like tidbits of news and some of the scans that David has made in the newsletters, and I'll come across something like that'll be some oddball Spectrum game that will just work, even though it was never meant to work on the 2068. That'll just work fully.
Really?
Yeah, a couple of them, not too many, but sometimes people will write in an excited letter and say, "I was trying this and it worked without modification."
Were they machine code programs, or?
I believe so. Yeah, they were like commercial
Really?
programs. Yeah.
Huh. I'm sure
Well, I
basic
mentioned-
programs would certainly work, but yeah.
There are some that do work because they weren't making, or at least
calls.
any critical ROM calls that were moved.
Yeah.
I think I remember we got Manic Miner statement for RamTop for the basic loader. I think once you load the machine code, it's just going to clobber everything anyway, and then it would work because it wasn't making, or at least ROM calls that were moved. So there were some.
That'd be interesting, because I mean, it doesn't take very long in the ROM before they start adding things, and then it just shifts everything. So I mean, like simple things like getting keyboard input, right? I mean, that's moved. I mean, so how can you? I don't know what you would write machine language wise to call a ROM code that the 2068 and the Spectrum matched. That's interesting.
Well, weren't some of the character print routines and like an RST call?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, those would be the same, because the RSTs all go to the same whatever RST you're calling, right? But so maybe that is a way around that, right?
I think that's maybe what a lot of those were using, was just, okay, we need to print a character, okay, fine, but a lot of them, if they were just doing it themselves, maybe the keyboard reading, they were doing something custom to be quicker or do something different.
Well, I have read that like some of the later Spectrum games, like to be faster, they did away calling ROM calls completely, because they had to write fast code in the later 80s to run fast. So
yeah, except for the very early ones, I don't think there's very many ROM calls used at all. I think they're just the main ones. Some of them might have used restart 16, which is the print, and some of them might have used the interrupt to read the keyboard from system variables, but very few of those. Most of them would scan the keyboard directly, like with an in instruction. And so it's really just about it's mostly about tape loading and saving. So when the machine code program makes a call to the ROM to do the tape load and save, that's where there's a problem. I mean, that
makes sense. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, there's other reasons why there are incompatibilities. Like the Spectrum ROM has a lot of dead space in it. So at the end, there's a whole bunch of FFs at the end, and some programs were using that as an IM2 table. So the 2068 has stuff in there. So that's not going to work for, if they use that space for their IM2 vector interrupt or whatever.
Yeah, it's something I hadn't considered, is maybe they were just writing machine code to do all the work themselves. They weren't calling the Spectrum ROM to do it.
Yeah, and the other thing about the clear there is the 2068 ROM has more system variables, so it actually pushes BASIC up further in memory. So when your basic loader starts, there's less memory to load the machine code. So On a Spectrum, they might have started it very low that overlaps with the 2068 basic. So that's the other problem that might come about.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that. I've tried to load Spectrum programs into the 2068 mode of an emulator, and it would crash. And then I was like, oh, this is a Spectrum program. Switch over to Spectrum, and it works just fine.
But that is a good point. That a lot of these machine code games, or whatever, you're right. It was easier just for them to write the machine code themselves, to read the keys or to display something. And that works because the hardware is pretty much the same, right? I mean, reading the keyboard is going to be the same on the Spectrum as the 2068, even though the hardware is a little different and it has an SCLD in there instead, but the ports are the same. So if you wrote your own machine language code to do it, it's going to work on either one.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So that's maybe why these programs work.
Hey, Larry.
Yes.
You got any updates? Because you're intrepid. You do a lot of interesting things. And then you just muted yourself. I think that's Larry telling me he doesn't want to talk to us.
He's shy. He's
Larry, you there?
Oh, there I go. I can't remember which way the codes from the buttons at the bottom mean. So, yeah, I mean, last time I had my breadboard at TZX Arduino, and this is I bought a board from PCB Way and put it together. I built it. There's an audio chip on it for output, but it didn't seem to work right. So I modified it to another schematic I found online. And it works most of the time. It's simpler than, but I think I like that ZX USB better, the simple USB, not the video one. As far as loading stuff, because you need to have a SD card, everything. So, but yeah, I mean, I know I was trying to help Dave with his program, and that was the first time I messed with a TS-2068 file. And what a weird, trying to figure out how does that work? The code is, and the ZX81 is pretty straightforward, 4 bits, 9 bits, whatever it is. Just repeated whatever. The 2068's an oddball.
It changed to a different format. So the ZX, is that a TZX Arduino?
Yes, this is one of the kind. They had several different kinds of these. I said I found this on a YouTube video. This particular board. Now the board's a little bit different than one in the video, but so I just ordered the last board they had available that was presented, and it's pretty straightforward. Ain't much to it. Pretty simple.
Yeah, I've never heard of a Zaxxon board. I mean, I have one of those and it has like an OLED display. I haven't seen one that has a 16:2 like yours does.
Yeah,
that must be an older rev or something.
Could be. Yeah, you talk about you had the SVI dash cast, I guess it was.
Right. Yep.
But they're not seem to be available even to buy if you wanted one, are they?
Well, you have to talk to the guy that makes them. Oh. And he'll put you on a list, and like I said, I had to wait over a year for mine. I think I would have gotten it earlier, but I missed his email, and it like 3 months went by, and I was like, oh crap! He sent me that, hey, he has one available, so I sent him back. At that time, it's like, yeah, I've already, that one was already sold, and so, well, put me on a list again, because I mean that thing to me is the ultimate as far as like a cassette player for multiple machines of this time era, right? Because a lot of the machines use cassette tape. And so that machine pretty much can handle all of them. If you got a Commodore, and plus it's smart. It's not a stupid tool. It knows the format that you're trying to put into it. So if you're doing a Commodore format, it knows the Commodore format. So it'll format the file that you're saving into a Commodore format or a Timex format or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know the one you talk about. You have something like this with the OLED display. It takes P and TZX files and loads them at a regular speed, pretty much. Okay. It seems like.
Right.
So, which is not bad. I mean, I got ZX Expand. but lots
Right.
of different ones to play with, and each. That's why I kind of like the Westby a little bit better, because you didn't have to play with the SD card. Take it out, put it into your computer, load it the programs, put it back in. Whereas on the Westby, you just click it because it actually opened a web page, basically. Your server page, will guess, right? Which has made it handier, but you had to reload it every time you wanted to load a new program. But it wasn't much. Just load quotes and ready.
Yeah. Yeah, the SBI CAS is nice because, like I said, I've got, when Adam saw it too, but we loaded, it's got programs on there from all kinds of different machines, right? And you just have to pick the folder. So it's not just Timex machine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice concept because it gives so much flexibility. You don't have to have all kinds of, people have all kinds of different computers, yeah, that's a neat way to go.
Yeah. Plus it reads the remote line, because a lot of those machines actually controlled the tape deck with the remote line, right? They would stop the cassette tape and start it up, when the computer told it to. And so the SBI CAS reads that as well, right? So it knows about that too.
I think, didn't Atari's do that? Have the stop and start business?
I think
you don't
so.
know.
Well,
Yeah,
Atari's tape decks. Well, all the stuff went over the SIO port, so it was a different animal in some regard.
You had to have I built an adapter instead of having the actual tape player. I built an adapter that was in radio electronics, I think it was. They actually built this little circuit. It would work both ways, and that way you didn't have to have their tape player. You could use any tape player.
And the guy that makes the SBI CAS, he makes cables for like the Atari, right? And for the Commodore, so that you can plug into those computers directly, and it comes out to some, the RTS jack or the TS, tip ring jacks that plug into the SBI CAS. So it's like you can use the SBI CAS with those computers that have those. I don't want to call them proprietary, but they're just a little, they're different.
Yeah, they're connected. Yeah, they're.
Yeah,
on those computers, however, you want to avoid using tapes if you can, because like some of those later programs that were 64K can take 20 minutes to load. I mean, they take a long time.
Yeah, much nicer.
Yeah, they all had disk drives, so there's no reason to use the tape.
So it's really not.
That was something I was looking into recently. I'd mentioned to Adam about researching, what prices were things back then. And I'd kind of forgotten that several of those machines, you had to have their cassette recorder. Yes, if you didn't have any cassette recorder at all, you did have to buy one for even the Timex, but you could buy anyone. You probably had one, but for like the Atari and the Commodore, you had to get theirs unless you could come upon one of the adapter things back in the day, perhaps. But that was not. I can't find pricing on those, but I'm trying to find out how much that additional cost above the $300-400 price did that add.
Oh, I remember that the Commodore cassette player was something like $40 in 1983. That was a non-trivial, amount of money.
In 1982, it was $100.
Was it? Oh my God!
So
yeah,
when I looked at the Commodore, when I looked at the VIC-20 in spring of '82, because I almost bought it, it was $400 for both the computer. It's $300 for the computer, $100 for the cassette player. So $400 out the door.
No, it's this much.
Yeah, and
they were getting their money for those proprietary cassette decks.
Yeah,
for sure.
And then if you went the disk drive, they got cheaper later, but
yeah, they were expensive as a computer or more sometimes.
They were at least half the cost depending on the computer of the machine. So to have, something with that kind of storage was not cheap at all.
No, when everybody's making $5 an hour, is figured, that was probably about the going rate back then. I remember in '81, I was making $11.15 an hour, and I was making good money then.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, in '81. So figure in '80, $5 an hour was probably realistic. So everything was really expensive back then compared to what you made.
Yeah.
I remember my friend of mine bought got a Tandy color computer, extended basic with 16K, with $600. His parents bought him for birthday or Christmas the disk drive, 5.25 disk drive with a disk controller for another 600 bucks.
Oof.
And then
Yeah.
at the time, so the story was, took the SATs in downtown Hayward at Hayward High School, different one that I went to. My friend Doug and I walked downtown Hayward, walked into the bike shop of Hayward and said, "Hey, how much is your cheapest computer?" They go, "Apple II, $1,200. Thank you very much. So I see you later." Then we went to Computerland and they had the VIC 20 for 400. We go, "Oh, 400, that's a little more reasonable." Okay. So we both were thinking about the VIC, that he went to Tandy and I went to ZX81. So that's how I remember the prices from back then.
Well, you know, you have to look at
my first car, I think I bought a year or two later, it was only 600.
I don't know if anyone has a chance, but we were just talking about disk drives, and I put a link, and then Tim, I think it was, who also put a link. Was it? But I linked to a page about a picture of a disk drive for the 1000, and I was wondering if, like, is that like a highly unusual setup there that's in that magazine? It looks really weird to me.
Adam, I don't know if I didn't get your link. It might have been because of
oh, really?
Carl's
Yeah.
upload blew it away. Can you
Oh,
try
that's
putting it again?
interesting. Okay, I'll send it again.
It sometimes happens in Zoom where
Okay, I think we pressed like at the exact same time. It was weird.
Yeah.
I pressed it
Actually-
and I saw his.
Yeah, the Timex, the upload seems to have finished.
Yep.
So I don't know if it's there.
So if anyone takes a look at that, I'm just curious. Like, is that like a weird setup, or
Well,
is that just?
I think
Waiting
any
for it.
disk system for the 1000 was weird, because I mean it was like way past its lifetime, you know.
Well, this was in 1982 or something, 1983.
What was the brand? Because it's not coming through. For
Oh,
me.
it's you still don't see the link?
No.
It's
I
the
don't see-
AERCOST
Okay.
bus interface.
The
I'll
Airco.
just put-
Erico? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just put the link in instead of.
You have it set to DM to me, Adam. I see the link every time you
Oh,
post it, but
shit.
nobody else
Oh,
can.
excuse me. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot.
You guys got something
Yeah,
going
they're-
on the side
they're
there that we
going
don't know
through.
about? Yeah.
I guess so. I didn't know it, but I guess so.
Okay. Let's
Okay.
see if that works.
Yes, exactly. The Airco standard bus.
Okay, I
thing.
see it now.
I know exactly what
Okay.
you're talking about.
So,
isn't
like,
that
doesn't
cool?
it look like futuristic, but not futuristic at the same time?
Well, yes. And so here's the kind of interesting thing about that is the standard bus was this standard for embedded control systems back then, and maybe a
Oh.
little bit now. Was it, I don't know if anybody else remembers it. I don't remember if it was a 3264 connector or whatever, but it was a card cage. You could get a Z80 card and a RAM cards and floppy disk controllers and whatnot. And Jerry Chamkis, the person behind Airco, started out by with this thing where you could hook up your CX81 to the standard bus. If I recall correctly, I think he did come up with a floppy drive for the 1000. I know Larkin did. It was a Larkin floppy drive for the 1000. Let me just see if Airco had one.
You're not talking about the S100 bus, are you? Or does
No,
something
it's
proprietary to Erico?
No. Standard bus was a common thing. I mean, you used to see
Okay.
it in like EE Times or some of those other industry magazines for electrical engineers in the 80s. Maybe a little bit too in Byte magazine.
Yeah, I think it's starting to ring some bells now. Standard bus. Yeah.
But isn't the question Adam's asking is about the look of that particular device, how it's all kind of wrapped up with a monitor?
Yes, that's
with
exactly
a strap.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is supposed to be
Panasonic
designed to be
television.
portable. Once you get it somewhere, you unstrap it, pull out the hardware, and set it up.
I see. Because I was like,
No,
because the keyboard's at an odd angle. You can't type and look at the monitor. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it's designed to
I'm gonna put
portable,
this.
carry it, unassemble it, do your stuff, and put it back together again to carry it around also.
Yeah,
So.
I mean that's like that's your standard sort of.
Oh yeah,
Come
certainly.
along strap.
I see. Okay, because I looked at that and I could not quite wrap my head around like what was the deal there. Okay.
Yeah, because it's got that.
The TV being portable, I think, is the giveaway.
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
And
the strap for me is a giveaway because it's like there's no way you would be running it that way.
Right. Block certain keys.
Yeah, exactly.
But it does remind me of, I think back in the Cats days, there was a someone got a hold of some QL monitors or RGB monitors super cheap, and they did not have cases. So a couple of people would just took cardboard boxes and made cases, and then had a strap so you could they could carry it to the meeting that way. I remember Herb Schaff having one that it was a wild turkey monitor. The whole box was wild turkey, whatever whiskey, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But the box was just there to prevent you from touching any of the parts inside and zapping yourself, any of the high voltage parts. But it worked fine.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. That's how you did it back in the day, man. You did your wood, cut up some wood. Yeah, use cardboard, whatever you could do to make a case.
A metal frame, but no case.
No,
Right.
So again, the cardboard was just there to keep you from touching inside and hitting that high voltage, which would be a bad thing.
Tim, didn't somebody stick one in a milk crate? Because I remember reading one of those articles about that.
I don't remember the milk crate, but there might have been.
Yeah.
I remember Herb Schaff also playing with the QL power supply, realizing that, oh, you don't need this bit. Oh, you don't need that bit. And you don't need that bit. We only need this because it was redundant. Oh, but I really want a resistor that does this thing. So, oh, I know, a 50-watt light bulb will do it.
Okay.
Or whatever it was, some odd wattage. And it just kind of sat there and glowed and did just what he needed to do. He just thought, oh, these things aren't needed because of because I guess they over-engineered the power supply.
Well, then you at least had an on light, so.
Yeah.
Madman Muntz used to do that with television sets.
Exactly. I was going to say that sounds like a ham radio solution.
Yeah. But that was Muntz who used to do that, and he would pull components out until it failed, and then put the last component in and said, "Go ahead and sell that." And then that's what they would produce and they would sell. So yeah, that was cost-saving measures.
I want to point out that Dario uploaded Cyberzone for the 2068 with the original inlays. Now, Dario, do you mean
it's like the instructions?
The
is what it looks like to me, yeah. Because he's got like the cover. I mean, like the box, the front of the box, the back of the box, and then looks like instructions is what he's meaning by the inlays.
Okay. Well, so where
I think that's new to me. When I played this before, I don't think I've seen, and I've looked around. I've seen the box, but I don't think I've seen these inlays. I'm opening up and I looked at it right now, and it talks about the voice activation. It says players can fire the lasers with the sound of their voice instead of using the keyboard, and then it tells you how to do it. Because it's so difficult to press that fire button.
Button, yes. I'll update the website with this stuff. But it does remind me.
Anybody here?
Go ahead.
Okay, all right.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, David.
It reminds me that at one point, some folks were making these overlays that you could put on your 2068, right? It had a little cutout for all the little keys and an extra wide sort of portion at the top, and you would use it to if you were playing a game or using a program that had special functions per key, you could write down what those things were. And I've been lamenting only a little bit, not a whole lot, that I haven't been able to find these. But then it dawned on me the other day, we have a Cricut machine and I can make them out of cardboard. I have no idea why that would be useful.
Machine?
What's that?
What's a Cricut machine?
Oh, it's a
cutter.
Yeah, it's
like
a
cutting
machine.
Yeah. So you can put a pattern in on the program and it'll cut the pattern out on material that you put in the machine.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
for
is that
instance-
something you have at work or what?
No, it's at home. It's a home crafting machine.
Yeah,
Oh.
you can get it at like Michael's and Home
Yeah.
Depot, Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby, yeah.
I have one too. So
You can make iron-ons for t-shirts, right? And so I made one. This what's you can see sort of here is referencing a Laurie Anderson album from the early 80s. And so yeah, but it'll also cut cardstock.
Superman. I
And so
keep
that's
thinking,
what
Superman was one of her songs.
Yep, Superman, exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I just picked up a laser cutter. I can do the same thing.
Right, but a laser cutter is a little more expensive.
But see, the overlays, if you want to make a copy of an overlay, you just go to a print shop to have it laminated, then you cut it to fit your keyboard. And they're not that hard to make, they're pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to cut out each of the key
You have to cut out
openings too.
43 key spaces, keyholes. Anyway, Tim, you were gonna say.
I'm not sure I mentioned this before, but you mentioned the voice activating. Remind me of in the late 70s, Channel 2 in Oakland had something called Captain Cosmic, and the same guy that did Creature Features did that, and they would show different sci-fi shows. And one of the features they had was a video game that you would play when you dial in from home on your phone, and it was
Would you
basically
say POW?
Odyssey 2. Pardon?
Would you say POW?
Yep.
Yep, I know.
And they had a guy in the back studio pushing the button, the fire button, whenever you say POW.
Yeah.
So you can play the video game over the phone, watch on the TV, and it was just some guy in the back, and that was the technology at the time. Just some guy in the back going, "POW, okay."
Wow, talk about
and the person would always just go "POW, POW, 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 POW."
You're kidding, Tim. Come on.
No,
you've never seen this thing. They used to have it on WPIX, and it was originally on the Fairchild Channel F, and then they used it in television, and it was one of the space games. And they on WPIX you didn't say POW, you said PIX because it's PIX. But they did it all the way till about 83 on a lot of places. And yeah, Tim is exactly right. What they told you was when you said POW, the advanced technology would fire, but it wasn't. It was just some guy always firing for you.
I'm sure with many stations, probably the same thing,
Yeah,
So-
you can find videos of it, like probably TV POW, like that's what it was called on YouTube. Yeah,
that's so they're calling the human guy sitting there hitting the power button, the advanced technology.
Maybe.
Yeah, I have a
maybe
couple
not.
channel Fs, and I like the controllers on them because it's twist left, twist right, up and down, and as well as forward, left, and right.
Mm-hmm.
Forward,
Yeah,
left,
if you like that, the Timex joystick that they came out with, the 2090, is basically that, except you can't twist it. But you push it up and down, left and right, and it actually added a fire button on it.
Yeah,
but it's the same. It's the same Fairchild design.
Yeah,
I got a bunch of carts and 2 channel Fs here.
very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have a couple minutes left.
There's a link to TV POW.
TV POW, right? Awesome. Adam, you're firing on all cylinders tonight.
Well, except when he was PMing,
Right. So we have a couple minutes left.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to try to show you here real quick with thing I've been finding on some tapes. When I'm recovering some of the tapes.
Yeah.
And I get, most of these are going fine, but on a lot of these, I'll get a tape load error right at the beginning. And it's very interesting what I found that this is. And I'll have to do one of my steady cams here.
Oh, good. The shaky cam.
shaky cam.
Is Parkinson's.
All right.
Okay. Uh-oh.
So that looks like a decent.
Where's Adam when I need him? Because I gotta zoom in.
I'll be right over.
Is this like from the Blair Timex project?
Adam, can you hold his phone for him too?
Oh no, hold on.
Oh, now we've gone to finger cam.
I'll just zoom it in.
It looks like it drops out there in the middle. Well, I don't know.
Well, basically, at the very beginning of the data, I'll find it real quick.
Now we can't see you or the TV or anything. So
Oh, we got a ton
Yeah,
of hands.
400 keyboard.
there we go.
Oh, wow. Look at that
Yeah.
junk.
Okay.
Okay, so you get this. So you had the header,
Yeah.
Mhm.
then you're into the steady tone, and then you're about to go into the data.
Yeah.
And right there, it
That little glitch.
seems to transition
Oh,
frequencies.
yeah.
And right, let me zoom in more.
Yeah.
And right there, when it does that, you can see like here seems to be, it's like it's run the frequency up a little bit. And that
Mhm.
transition causes this little artifact.
Mm-hmm.
It changes frequency. Yeah. It actually changes. On the left, it's a lower frequency. On the
Yeah.
right, it's a higher frequency.
Yeah.
And right when it's doing that transition, on a lot of recordings, I get this here. And on the good ones, that has a more pronounced valley.
Okay.
And on the bad ones, it doesn't go down very much. So we'll just go there and do a little edit. I'll just redo the edit.
There
no,
you
that's-
go.
Oh, interesting.
No, that's not it. Sorry.
I was going to say that looks like a Grand Canyon there.
Oh, hold on. Okay, I've blown the undo buffer apparently. But you go in there and you'll just
Just edit that by hand down to
you'll do something that I'll do like a little normalize or something that just gets that down there.
yeah.
You get good at doing it, and that's all the change I made, and then it loads fine.
Interesting. Okay.
It's
Good
that's
to know.
caused by high frequency roll off. What you showed previously could because the valley didn't drop as far, high frequency roll off will cause that as well.
Okay.
I actually don't know what
Yeah.
that means.
Dirty tape head, possibly. Or azimuth out of an adjustment.
Okay.
Tape head azimuth out of adjustment or dirty tape head. Could be caused by either one of those.
But yeah, it's mostly that, everything else is fine in the recording.
Yeah.
Well, at least you found the culprit and fixed it.
Yeah, because like I had one before and I went all the way through and I said, well, this all looks good, and then went back to that and I thought, well, it can't be that way, could it? Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then there's people out there saying, why in the hell in 2023 are we looking at, cassette tape waveforms loading?
Why aren't all these programs on WAV files or MP3s even?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
I would think somebody should undertake that, and that way we can have an archive, and then just take the output of your computer and plug it right into your other computer.
Well,
That's what it
Adam
would
does
be.
that. Yeah, Adam uses his
Yeah.
PC as a tape player, basically.
I do.
Yeah, but the thing I keep thinking about is on my ZX81s, I would instead of plugging a cassette deck into it, I'd plug in a microphone and just set the microphone in front of my desktop computer speaker and load it that way.
And that would work, huh?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
As long as you're quiet, sneeze
Yeah.
and you might have problems.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, there's that
reports
error.
To me, the acoustic modem days of
Yeah, exactly.
I used a Princess handset with an acoustic modem.
exactly.
Anybody know what a Princess handset
Oh
is?
yeah, it
Yes.
doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit. So if I did sneeze, it would log off instantly.
Yeah.
I remember the university computers. That's all you got was a combination modem printer keyboard, and you never had a computer at home. You just had this terminal, and you logged into the university computers and played Star Trek that way.
Yeah. Right. Star Trek. Exactly.
That's what they did with text. That was all text based with the printers. My brother-in-law was a programmer that was doing that, and yeah, it was just a cool little terminal all what was it looked like a typewriter with a acoustic interface for the phone.
Yeah, there was a bunch
Was
of
it
those.
paper or was it
It was paper.
screen?
It was paper.
That was probably the Silent 700.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
there were
the
a
one with
couple
built-in.
different ones.
Yeah.
I used the Silent 700 for work a few times. It was
Sounds
built
like
in paper.
Sounds like a Texas Instruments product. Silent.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thermal. Yeah. That's the silence. Okay, so on that note, it's time for silence. That's our meeting for tonight. Our next meeting, I believe, is I'll tell you, it's not the 14th. Our next meeting is the 21st because the 14th is Mother's Day.
Yeah, that's right. That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah, and we have another one coming up, another jump coming up, I think in June, is it? Yeah, we're gonna have to reschedule the June meeting, which would be the 18th, which is Father's Day. So that'll get pushed out to the next Sunday of June. Is that right? That's right. Yes. Okay.
So in other words, we'll have 3 weeks and then a meeting, and then a week after that we'll have another meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know.
And that video you showed of you and Enzo, is that up there on the?
Yep.
Okay.
I sent the link to the groups.
Okay.
I will link to it, in the comments. It should be in the chat if you want to grab it. Did I put it?
You putting it in there now?
Yeah, you know what? I'll put it in there now, so that will make.
And I can do a save. Yeah.
Yep. Let me just do. Here we go. Copy that link, and come back to Zoom. Okay, and I warn you, it's an hour and 45 minutes. I mean, it's interesting.
Well, it's kind of like one of our meetings. Yeah, I'd be interested to see more or hear more talk about that 1500 development thing.
And we're gonna be doing another episode about the 1500. Joel has a ton of interesting documents. We didn't even get through the all the SCLD stuff. So more to come there. We have no speaker lined up per se for our next meeting, but I'm sure we'll all have updates.
Actually, I think I'm available, but I would like to. I mentioned in the group. I kind of want to do a little talk about my disassembly work for the ZX81.
Yeah, exactly.
And mostly it's not for the benefit of y'all. I want it to be for me because I want to show you what I'm doing, and then I want you all to be like, that's not the best way to go about it. I want you to here's these better tools you can use, because like I've said, I'm using tools that I'm familiar with that I use on another system that's a Z80 system.
I would suggest, Adam, that you might want to look at Hot Z for the ZX81. Ray made a great assembler disassembler program. Like I said, I built my whole diagnostic cartridge using his Hot Z. Of course, that was on the 2068, but he does have a.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, he has a ZX80, TS1000 ZX81 version as well. That's where he started. That was the first.
Oh, I understand that, but I use cross compiling, so I'm using ZMac, which is a popular Z80 disassembler, or excuse me, assembler for the Z80 on Windows and other platforms, because the source code is available.
Oh, okay. So you're using it on Windows. You're using a Windows assembler. Okay.
Yeah, it's cross. I mean, it's available on multiple platforms like the Mac and others. So
I was just saying, if you got a 1000 emulator, or on the hardware itself, you could load Hot Z and then load in your machine code language and load it into Hot Z, right? And Hot Z would know where it starts, so it knows it's not garbage code.
Oh, I know how to do that part. I mean, I don't need assembler. What I need is help with some disassembly stuff, which maybe we can line it up. I don't know. We can talk about it on the group. It's just something I wanted to try to get some tips.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that'd be fun.
I wrote a disassembler if you want to look at the code for that.
You wrote a disassembler?
Very dumb and very basic disassembler for the Z80 that runs on the QL, but it should work on any platform with the source, just porting the source code.
Well, maybe I'll bring up a list of questions on the group and we'll come up with something. I can show you what I do, and then you all can watch it, and I'll maybe disassemble part of our program live.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long, and then you can get an idea of how I go about things, and I can get maybe a better work schedule of how I could do it better and faster.
And what's your
easier.
ultimate end goal here? Just to totally disassemble the program and
No,
understand how it
actually,
works, or
I understand how part of it works. What I find interesting about it is it's one of the fastest Z80 programs I've seen for scrolling, without a doubt. And it's not like I have a lot of experience with the Z80, the Z81, or ZX81, but it's pretty darn fast, and I'm pretty impressed by it. And so I'm just looking at it, and also I kind of think it's neat that Dan is local and just lives up the street. So.
That is pretty neat.
Who knew that Albuquerque become the focus of all Timex Sinclair stuff?
I know. It's like the black hole of.
come on, man.
Not a black hole,
of,
the bright hole.
home of Microsoft, man. Come on, what are you guys talking
Well,
about?
they don't have the Altair anymore, so they got to find something to replace it.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
We'll see you in,
Thanks for stopping
by.
2 weeks.
Have a good one, guys.